What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday, back from Easter weekend, and we're talking basketball. It is the Awesemo.com NBA strategy show presented by Underdog Fantasy. I'm Dave Loughran. Joining me, Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. You can follow me at Lafayette_D on the Twitters as well. Breaking down a three-gamer today, game twos, Adam, and you got one that has a 205.5 total. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, so some pretty low-scoring games. That Bucks, or not Bucks, Bulls-Bucks game yesterday. I think missed the total by like 40 or 50 points or something like that.
Is that what it missed it by?
I don't remember what the final was. I think they put up on the screen during the game, because I don't know what it was going in, but I think they put up that it was 230. And I know with like 5 minutes left in the game, it was at 155.
Hold on, Bucks Bulls?
Yeah.
Yeah, it finished, I think, like 94-86 or something. Hold on, let me check. 93-86. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And well, today, though, you got one with a 205 total. That game last time out was what? 191 total points scored. Not as surprising, though, because it's the Mavs and the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, two of the slowest teams in the league. That was the one where Kidd even joked before the game that they were probably the first game because everybody knew how slow it was going to be, and the NBA just wanted to get it out of the way.
Yeah, seriously. Ended up being a good game. I mean, look, I'm fine with those type of games if they're competitive. This has been actually pretty fun start to the playoffs. I'm not even including the play-in games, but there have been some good games. I mean, Minnesota taking that win. That was a 13-point game, but it was pretty competitive throughout. And then Utah and Dallas hanging in there. You got Reggie Bullock playing like the whole game. I was happy to see the Philadelphia 76ers with that 20-point win. And then yesterday, I didn't watch much of Bucks Bulls at all, but I caught as much as I could of that Boston Nets game. Did you watch the Boston and the Brooklyn game?
Kind of had it on in the background at times, but I didn't really
see the final sequence
of the Bucks. Wait, of which game?
Boston, Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah. I saw the end of that game.
So I'm at my in-laws, and we're all hanging out, we're eating and everything. So it was on mute, and we're walking around. But I'm watching this, and I think to myself, like, I'm seeing it, but kind of coming in and out at the end. And like, why did Durant take that shot that ultimately led to Jason Tatum getting that sick like pirouette for the layup? Yeah. Then went back and watched it. It was just stifling defense by Boston, and he had to get the ball out before the shot clock expired. The defense was insane.
Really good defense down the stretch.
Yeah, it was good. But like I said, we're kind of walking in. I got my daughter running around, getting up steps now. So you don't know how that goes, but you can imagine.
I have no idea how that goes.
You can imagine how that goes, right? Like you're chasing him, and I'm like, what is he doing? And I thought like they could not get a shot off. They wanted to get a Kyrie Irving 3 there. It looked like. I'm wondering, why is he taking a 3? They're already up by 2. Just get a bucket, put them up 2 possessions. But yeah, I mean, that was phenomenal defense down the stretch by Boston. And then to get that shot off as time expired, really good finish. We got some fun ones tonight as well. Toronto, not expected to have Gary Trent, not expected to have Scotty Barnes. On a lesser level, only played like 6 or 7 minutes last game. Thaddeus Young, also doubtful for this one. And then Utah, Dallas, Denver, Golden State. That one was not competitive at all last time. Not a huge surprise. Any of these spots you're particularly looking forward to just from like watching them?
No.
I didn't think so. Like Boston, Brooklyn's the one that I get most excited to. Philly, obviously, but that's because I'm a Sixers fan.
Right, yeah. As far as the series go, I mean, Boston, Brooklyn, because I mean, you can say what you want about the Nets, but any team with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant is just way more dangerous than your normal 2 or 7 seed or whatever they are.
Yeah, no question. Boston, though, I mean, what a win.
Yeah.
Brooklyn made a great Brooklyn was down by like 13 points at one point in the third too, I thought.
Yeah, they went on a huge run to open the fourth and took the lead. And so I ended up not betting. I was thinking about betting Brooklyn as dogs going into that series, but it only got to like plus 110, so I didn't take it. But I was like, well, they'll lose the first game in Boston. Maybe I can get a better number, and I'll take it once they're down a game. And then they're winning. I'm like, damn, I guess that's going to go out the window, but I'll still have that chance, I guess.
What's it at? Have you looked to see what it's at?
I haven't looked. It wasn't up last night when I looked. I haven't looked this morning.
It's probably here we go right here. So series markets, Brooklyn, plus 180.
Yeah, I was hoping it would go more.
Yeah, that's not that crazy right now. Some of these, Utah minus 700, Philly minus 425, Warriors minus 500. And these are all the games for tonight, right? Like these are all games where these teams are heavy favorites to win their respective series. So let's dive into it. Hopefully you guys had a good weekend, a great Easter if you celebrate it. Or as Adam told me, Passover. What day was Passover?
I don't know, man. Like
you're
Friday.
The one that told me when I said, hey, happy Easter. You're like, by the way, it's Passover too.
Yeah, I don't know. It was this weekend. I think it was like Friday or Saturday or Sunday, one of those days.
And we're back for it. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. We greatly appreciate it. It helps us around here. Otherwise, I wouldn't ask you, but it does. So if you haven't done so, hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel as well. We're at 75,700 plus, just making strides. Getting towards that century mark is going to be a party. And if you want to join, hit that join down below. We'll get you the free super chats each month, the custom emojis, the sweet badges. I'm iced up now, baby. Got that blue iced out badge for the 1 year. Jake D coming in strong, deciding that would be the 1 year badge. And we'll always prioritize your questions along with premium Discord and all of that and comments as well. So, all right, let's dive into this one. Toronto, Philadelphia. So the 76ers, let me just say this. That was an outlier game. Okay. You can say whatever you want about them. And I still think, it's a great win. It was a great team effort. And I think if I said this to Josh yesterday, Adam, if you're going to go deep into the playoffs as the 76ers, it's not going to be with Embiid scoring 35 points a game. It's just not going to be. You need Harris and Maxey and Harden. You need everyone to contribute. I don't care if it's Harden contributing with 14 assists a game and not turning the ball over. That's fine. But in a sense, it was an outlier. Maxey dropped 38. Harris played phenomenally. Harden didn't have a turnover and 14 assists, but the team only turned the ball over 3 times on the entire game, and they just shot lights out from 3-point range. So expect a little bit of regression there. But Toronto on the other side is expecting to be without 2 of their starters today too.
Yeah, just really brutal spot for Toronto now.
So let's talk about the Raptors, 7.5-point dogs. The first question here is, what do we see from Nick Nurse in the rotations? Now, yes, if you look at Popcorn Machine or wherever you go, they played a lot of guys last game, but Isaac Bonga, Brooks, Banton, Flynn, those guys were essentially just like all blowout guys. Even Watanabe was played like the final 6 minutes or so, but hadn't played before that. So aside from that, you only had 9 guys in the rotation, and Thad Young, if you count him, played 5 minutes. A lot of Ken Burch played 8 minutes.
Yeah, so it's going to be just a totally different Toronto rotation here. And for once, I'm not even exactly confident in how it's going to go, because we've seen so many injuries on Toronto this year that it was pretty easy to say, like, okay, well, this guy's going to step in, that guy's going to step in. But we did get the random Armani Brooks start. I think it was with Van Vliet out towards the end of the season. I'm not expecting that to be the case today. I'm assuming you're going to get a starting lineup of Van Vliet, Anunoby, Siakam, Boucher, Achua, probably. Maybe you get Mikhailuk or Brooks in there, but I'm not really sure. I'm assuming they're just going to go bigger, though, because that's typically what they try and do.
And I guess it doesn't matter much now, but like Thad Young's minutes were very much curtailed in that first game. It's the playoffs. But don't you think if Thad Young was – what's that?
He got hurt.
Right. Yeah, but did he get injured in that rotation, in that first rotation?
Yeah.
How many minutes do you think he would have played then?
I don't know. So I think he got injured in that rotation. I'm not sure how many minutes he would have played. I know that we got the alert saying, like, Thad Young's injured. Okay.
So with him out, that takes another body off the floor that you could give some extra additional minutes to at the forward positions. Like, how do you think, and I know it's early, we'll have the deeper dive, we'll have live before lock and all of that stuff today, but how do you, even outside of the rotation, what do you think the playing time looks like? I mean, Siakam's playing 43 at minimum at this point. What did he play? 40 last game. He lost 3 minutes to a blowout. We know that those guys, even Anunoby probably gets to 36, if not more. And Van Vliet's going to play a lot. But what about the other guys?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you're getting 40 plus from the 3 main guys: Van Vliet, Anunoby, Siakam. The rest, I think like I said, I'm not sure what the starting lineup looks like. I'm guessing they start Boucher and Achua, but I don't know. Could be Brooks, could be Flynn, could be Mikhailuk, or it could be Watanabe. Like I don't know exactly what they'll do with that fifth piece, but I think that for sure Siakam, Van Vliet, Anunoby, and Achua are starting. I think the first three are playing a ton of minutes. I think Achua plays a lot as well. At 4,300, he'll end up looking like a good value. And then I think it's kind of just trying to guess right on the other pieces. Boucher would be whether he's starting or not. Boucher would be my first choice off the bench, just because even if he doesn't start, I expect him to play a big role here, get increased minutes. He's a very good point per minute guy. He's only 4,400. Then with the Brooks, Flynn, Birch pieces, I think that one's really, really difficult because with Van Vliet in, Brooks doesn't really have a natural role here. Like if you're just trying to get another shooter off the bench, you're better off going with Svi Mikhailuk. If you're going to try and add defense, you're going to somebody like Watanabe. If you want to play with more size, you're going to Kem Birch whenever Achua is not out there. So on the one hand, Brooks at 3K, like, yeah, he has a path to more minutes. I just don't, if he's coming off the bench, I don't really know what that path is. If they start him, then obviously he's at least getting some minutes. But I think that final spot is pretty risky, but Boucher is the one that I'm most confident in his playing time, whether he starts or comes off the bench.
It is tough with Van Vliet, though, because Nurse didn't run a traditional backup point guard at all in game one.
Right.
When Van Vliet was out, you had Boucher, Achua, Anunoby, Barnes, and Siakam out there. And then you had Siakam, Anunoby, Trent, Achua, and Boucher, and then Birch for a little bit towards the end. Like, so I don't know if Nurse needs to do that unless you're just trying to fill those wing spots and there's a trickle down effect. So
right. The way I see it is if they don't start Armani Brooks, I would think that you're getting either Brooks or Flynn basically playing backup point guard, maybe, a little bit more, but not enough to really matter. If Brooks starts, he's still risky because he's out there playing with Fred Van Vliet, and like, Van Vliet's not going to turn the offense over to Armani Brooks here. So he's still risky, but it'll at least be a good sign for his minutes. But like, they can very easily just also stagger Van Vliet and Siakam's the point guard when Van Vliet's not out there. So The bench rotation can be very, very fluid, I think, depending on like how the game's going, what they need. But that's why, again, like I'm most confident in Boucher out of that group, whether he's starting or not, because I think he's the one that is clearly ahead of everybody else that comes off the bench.
Nurse is really running some big lineups with Van Vliet off the floor. Like you're having like either one of or all three of the four of Achua, Birch, Boucher, and Siakam out there at all times. By the way, there's no way Boucher's 200 pounds. I know he's 6'9", but that dude can't be more than 140.
Oh yeah, I mean that's why the first time I saw that Taco Fall weighed over 300 pounds, I was so confused.
It's great. I get it. 6'9", 200 makes sense, but Boucher is so skinny, man. For a basketball player, he looks so thin out there. It's crazy. So okay, outside of
Armani Brooks to guard James Harden is a strange idea.
What do you say? Oh,
it's on Murphy said Brooks should start for defensive purposes to guard Harden.
Okay, yeah, I mean that won't work. The Raptors then outside, now that we have, at least we think we have some type of idea what it looks like. I think both of us would agree that it's good that it's the earliest game on the slate, put it that way, because then we'll know. And the biggest thing for me is that it's very possible that like sometimes starting lineup doesn't matter as much because guys still get a lot of minutes off the bench, but I don't know, Adam, given this rotation, given what, Nick Nurse's tendencies, given two starters out, you might see an even more condensed rotation tonight. So these starters really, really benefit if that's the case.
Yeah. Kind of. So like, I think that the normal starters, so Siakam, Van Vliet, Anunoby, Achua, I'm very confident saying they all play a ton of minutes, particularly the first three, but Achua as well. But then like the fifth starter, maybe like if Boucher starts, I think that's a great sign for his minutes.
Agreed.
If Armani Brooks starts, that's a good sign in that like he's going to play more than 8 minutes probably, but I'm still not viewing him as a traditional starter. Same goes for guys like, Flynn or Watanabe.
Yeah. I guess, but then the question would just be, who are the guys? Then are we expanding the bench?
In like maybe in terms of number of players, but not in terms of minutes. Like I think you just get probably a lot of Brooks, Flynn, Watanabe subbing in and out for each other.
Yeah, you could be right. You see,
like I think the closing lineup, one way or the other, is Siakam, Van Vliet, Anunoby, Achiuwa, and Boucher.
Start seeing a lot of those like Rick Carlisle crazy rotations off the bench where it's just like 3 minutes here, 5 minutes here for that guy. Yeah.
Right. Offense, defense, like, yeah. But like, I don't think it matters for DFS because there's just not enough minutes available.
So how much do you like these big three then? And then if Boucher starts, obviously, that 4,400, that's a great spot.
Yeah. So, looking at DraftKings pricing, I actually think my top three are Siakam, Van Vliet, and Achiuwa. Anunoby would be fourth at 5,800, and then Boucher at 44, whether he's starting or not. But if he starts, obviously looks better. Anunoby's not nearly as productive point per minute when he plays alongside Siakam. And of course, most minutes for everybody today are going to be alongside Siakam because I don't think he comes off the floor for more than like a few minutes. But at 4,300, just knowing that barring foul trouble, you're probably getting, 32 to 34 minutes from Achiuwa. It still makes him look like a good value at 4,300. If you wanted to pivot away from that in tournaments, maybe he gets in foul trouble. Khem Birch, you could take shots at, but he's not as good a point per minute guy anyway. So I think that Siakam and Van Vliet both look very good at their respective price tags. Van Vliet at 7,500 is wildly underpriced. Siakam at 9,200, I think a little bit less so, but still too cheap. And then Anunoby looks fine. Boucher looks fine.
Anunoby has played 730 minutes alongside Barnes and Trent this year, 19.5% usage rate. Without them, he's played around 300 minutes. His usage rate's at 26.5%. So I think Anunoby's pretty interesting. The price point isn't great. Like you would love him to be a little bit cheaper, but assuming that he does play huge minutes as one of the quote unquote big three, I kind of like Anunoby a decent amount, just given that Van Vliet, from a usage standpoint, ever since he returned from that knee, he is not producing at the same rate. Like his usage is down to 21% since Anunoby came back on the 24th of March. So we'll see. I mean, you would think that he starts to be a little bit more aggressive here. All right.
Yeah, agreed.
Philadelphia, Embiid, Harden, Harris, Maxey. I mean, honestly, last game is the game you love to see if you are a Sixers fan. Not really the game that you love to see if you are a DFS player, because I mean, I guess I should say that, phrase it a little differently, because Maxey was obviously good. Harris was really good. But they spread the ball around a lot. And I think it's a winning formula for sure. But I also don't know if was this the game plan to make sure that Joel Embiid doesn't have to do all the work? He passed really well at a double team. So did James Harden. And that opened everything up for guys like Harris and Maxey, if you go back and watch some of that, or just take our word for it.
Yeah, I mean, Maxey led the team with a 30.8% usage rate. Embiid was second at 27%, and then Harris and Harden were both at between 25 and 26%. I don't think you necessarily just take those numbers and move forward with them. You still have to factor in, that Joel Embiid is Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey is Tyrese Maxey. But if it was, partially determined by Toronto's game plan and, forcing Philadelphia into that, which would make sense, then, maybe you do see at least a little bit of an increase in usage for guys like Maxey and Harris. They're both inexpensive. They're both playing a ton of minutes. At the very least, you can take shots on them at 6,400 and 6,800, knowing that there is some additional upside if you do kind of get a replica of how game one went. But you also got a decrease in salary on Embiid. He's down to $10,700 on DraftKings. Just an insane price tag for him. Whether he's leading the team in usage or not, he's going to be heavily involved as a passer. He's going to rebound well, and he's still going to get his scoring-wise, even if he's not at 36% usage or whatever he was during the regular season. But there's also no guarantee that he doesn't just get back to there, in future games. Like game one could easily be at least some sort of a blip where Embiid's usage was just down and now it goes back up. So 10-7 for him just looks ridiculously cheap. And it shouldn't be that difficult to get there, I don't think. Harden at 9,300, still underpriced. Clearly played really poorly down the stretch for Philadelphia. Came back, had a nice game one. But when you just talk about somebody that's going to play as many minutes as Harden and be as involved and get as many opportunities as Harden, it's really difficult to look away from him at $9,300.
I agree. And he paced 43 minutes last game. Had it not been for that blowout. Now, it could have been that Doc put, threw him back in the game a little bit early just to keep the foot on the gas, which, and just throttle the Raptors, which I think would have been wise. Doc's made that mistake way too many times in the past where he's just like, all right, we got a good cushion. Well, let's let him shrink it down to 6 and then we'll bring these guys back. So maybe it's, I mean, you're not projecting him for 43, obviously, but he played 40 minutes and came out with 3 minutes left in the game and that blowout. So Harden, barring foul trouble or injury or whatever, is a lock to play big minutes. If you're, and I think you were kind of alluding to this, you kind of said it actually. If you're telling me that Harden's playing 40 plus minutes, I don't care how much he struggled at 9,300 in a playoff game, especially where he is a primary distributor and he has the ball whenever he's on the floor. That's just too cheap of a price point.
Yeah, and there's also kind of the strategy point between him and Embiid because right now we don't have it projected to be as pronounced a difference as it was in game 1, but Embiid's still projected for a lot more ownership than Harden. And if you do get a replay of game 1 where, the Raptors are doubling Embiid and forcing the ball out of his hands and forcing guys like, Harden and Harris and Maxey to do more, then that makes Harden a lot closer to Embiid in terms of production. Down the stretch in the regular season, it was clearly Embiid 1, Harden 2, sometimes 3 to Maxey at that point. But it makes it so like if Harden goes out there and has his best game, he is at least to some extent probably cutting into Embiid's scoring and making it so they're a lot more similar than their median projections based on regular season usage and everything suggests. So from a strategy angle, Harden is interesting there too. Like assuming you're not going to be able to get both of Embiid and Harden into the same lineup because it's a playoff slate and value is going to suck. There's definitely some merit to just saying like, okay, Harden's a little bit cheaper. He's lower owned. If I get that ceiling Harden game, you're probably getting a good but not great Embiid game.
Right. Josh Gillum said Embiid said this is not a series where he's going to look to score 40 every night. Could just be talk. Yeah, look, I mean, I don't really take much into what he's saying. I look at the series in general. This is a team that has done pretty well against Embiid. Obviously, the Marc Gasol factor in the past was pretty significant. He played 32 minutes and had 0 points against the Raptors. Don't forget about that. Like the worst Embiid game ever. But I just think it makes more sense that when you have these other players on the team to not force everything to go through Embiid. It's just they've proven they don't win that way. Plus, there's no doubt in my mind this guy was looking for the scoring. Adam, he wanted the scoring title. Like it's no surprise that they were force feeding him the ball down the stretch when they knew that they were going to at least get the 4 seed,
Yeah, and as far as, Embiid saying it's not a series where he's going to look to score 40 every night, sure, because the Raptors probably are going, like, object number 1 for the Raptors defensively is not to lose to Joel Embiid single-handedly. So, like, assuming they're going to throw doubles at him and force him to pass the ball, like, yeah, he needs to not look to score 40. He doesn't want to just, force it through double teams. If they say, oh, well, we're not going to let Tyrese Maxey and James Harden beat us, and they just start, singling Embiid, then he's going to look to score 40 because that's what's best for the team. So, like, that's how I read into that. It's not that Embiid's going out there saying, like, oh, yeah, my plan in this series is to get everyone else involved. If they give it to him, he's going to take it. It's just unlikely that the Raptors give it to him.
Right. And how about my boy, Paul Reed? He's the backup center now in the playoffs. Got to hand it to him.
Yeah, until Rivers decides to
give it back to DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah.
Paul Reed's so much better than DeAndre Jordan. It's not even close. Anything else for Philly?
Danny Green played 22 minutes. He's 3,500. He's the type of value guy that people will probably go to at least a little bit, just because it's a playoff slate. He'll probably score like 14 fantasy points, and you'll wish you hadn't. But he did start in place of Matisse Thybulle. He played 22 minutes. Thybulle played 18 off the bench.
Shot 0 for 5 from 3.
Yeah, doing Danny Green stuff.
Stinks. All right, let's keep it going here. 1 down, 2 to go.
He was Seth Curry before Seth Curry was Seth Curry.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or Patty Mills. Sorry, not Seth Curry.
Oh, yeah. What you're saying, he was the Patty Mills that we were dealing with all season long?
Yeah, Danny Green was like a good, like 3-and-D NBA player until he suddenly wasn't.
Yeah, dude, Danny Green with the Toronto finals season was pretty effective,
He was good up until like the bubble, and then he just like completely forgot how to shoot.
Yeah, he was and he's just like a corner 3 guy. That's where he played. Just shoots corner 3s and plays defense. But like you said, you got to still shoot 3s or make them, I should say. And he hasn't been. But anyway. All right, let's get to Utah and Dallas. Before we do though, shout out to our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. They got some great contests going on. Hopefully you guys jumped in the best ball one for the NBA playoffs. That had 30K up top. I think it was like a $200,000 prize pool. Obviously, football, best ball's right around the corner. If you're like me, you'll probably get in on them pretty early. But tonight, even, you have the 20K Monday night hoops with 4K up top. Best ball draft snake draft format over there at Underdog Fantasy. And if you use the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, when you sign up and deposit, you get a deposit match, or they'll double your deposit, first deposit, up to $100 over there at Underdog Fantasy. Got to use the link in the description, though, or Jordan, if we have one, we can put in chat as well. Use that and use the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO. Get double on your first deposit, up to $100. Go to underdogfantasy.com, download it in the App Store, wherever you want to play. But yeah, it's a great site. Everyone uses it. Like anyone that plays best ball is using Underdog Fantasy now. So join the fun. All right, Utah, Dallas. Donovan Mitchell had a 42% usage rate last game in 41 minutes. Do you know how crazy that is to have a higher usage rate than minutes when you play 41 minutes?
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
I mean, and the crazy thing is he did not shoot well at all. He shot terribly, really. It was 34% and got to the line 11 times, though, 10 for 29, 42 minutes in this game. This is not a good matchup. It's not a fast-paced game. I mean, Dallas has a good defense. They play at a crawling pace, and that's the only reason they kept that game competitive. But, dude, if Mitchell's going to come out there and just rip shot after shot and play 40-plus minutes, I'm interested.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should be interested. Like, it's a 3-game slate. You're talking about Donovan Mitchell. He's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. Right now, he's getting 27% ownership on DraftKings, 26% chance of being optimal. So ownership about where it should be. You should get a ton of minutes from him as well. It just kind of comes down to the biggest argument against Mitchell, I think, and it's reflected in the ownership, at least to some extent. Well, I guess two things. For one, like you said, a slow-paced game, 205, 206 total, not likely to be high scoring, but a lot of that Utah scoring will come from Donovan Mitchell, obviously. Yeah. But the other thing is, like, he's only $900 less expensive than James Harden. He's more expensive than guys like Dinwiddie and Brunson that are going to play an increased role without Luka. So from that angle, it's kind of just like an awkward price tag on Mitchell, where he's more expensive than Van Vliet, where Mitchell himself is not overpriced, but I think he's just like less appealing. His salary is a little bit less appealing, especially in this spot, than guys like Van Vliet, Harden, the Dallas guys. So that makes it kind of difficult to get there, but at the same time, it lowers his ownership a little bit. The ceiling is obviously massive. Like, who on this team is going to take shots other than Donovan Mitchell? You know, Conley is around. He's a low 20s usage guy. So is Bogdanovich. Clarkson off the bench is the second highest usage guy on the team. So anything Donovan Mitchell wants, he can take.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with what you're saying. The price is reasonable. It's fair. It's not discounted, where we have other guys that seem discounted. But I mean, Clarkson only played 20 minutes last game too, right? So he's really not going to be alongside Mitchell that often. You have Bogdanovich, who got up a ton of shots. I mean, that seems to be the ceiling when it comes to Bogdanovich. Like 20 field goal attempts in that game, played 40 minutes. It's an interesting team because the matchup itself, the pace, all of that are wildly unappealing. But then you just look at the minutes, and then you look at even Bogdanovich usage last game. So Rudy Gobert had a 7% usage rate in that game. He was out there for 35 minutes, but it does appear that Mitchell and Bogdanovich are going to play a ton. And Mike Conley played 35 minutes himself. So when it comes to the Utah Jazz, all of that considered, they're still a fine team to get to just because of some of these salaries like Conley. And I think Bogdanovich is fine if he's going to keep shooting, but the matchup and the pace definitely keep it to where it's not a spot you're jumping to get to.
Yeah. So, I mean, Gobert, I think, is the other clear top piece here. You don't need the usage. So, him being a low usage guy is whatever, but he still played 35 to 36 minutes. It's a good spot for him. He's only 7,800. So I think, along with Mitchell, he looks very good. Gobert probably a little bit easier to get to as well. With the other players, though, I think it becomes pretty interesting. I just saw RC Vidal in chat make the point I was going to say as well. He said anybody feeling like everybody's going to flock to Bogey and we could pivot to Conley. I don't think Bogdanovic is a bad play by any stretch. Like, he was second on this team in usage last game, or tied with Clarkson at 27.5%. Like you were saying, he got up a ton of shots. He played 40 minutes. He's obviously a good play here at 5,700, but you can play like the way I view these peripheral guys is that it's just going to be a matter of, kind of what does Dallas give them outside of Donovan Mitchell. And after getting torched by Bogdanovic last game, it's entirely possible they come out today and they're like, all right, letting Bogdanovic beat us wasn't the answer. Let's make, old ass Mike Conley do it or something like that. And you get, more usage from Mike Conley. I think the point being, I think you're going to see game to game usage among guys like Bogdanovic and Conley be pretty volatile. So if you're going to see people kind of chase what happened last game, you can, move to someone else. The counterpoint right now, though, is that we have Conley projected for 28% ownership. We have Bogdanovic projected for 26% at basically the same price tag. If that holds, then I prefer going to Bogdanovic just because he is the one that we saw Dallas let beat them essentially. And, based on how that game went, you kind of have to think that Dallas is willing to say like, okay, well, let's try it again. If we lose to Bojan Bogdanovic, we lose to Bojan Bogdanovic.
For sure. Yeah, it's a good way to look at it, I think. And at that point, Mitchell shot terribly, but he did shoot a ton. So we'll see if they can keep the efficiency down. And if that's the case, maybe Dallas steals a game here. Maybe they play Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock for monster minutes again, which you kind of have to. You got to have these strong defensive players out there when Dinwiddie and Jalen Brunson are your number one and number two guys, or 1 and 1A from an offensive standpoint. But dude, Reggie Bullock played over 44 minutes. Dorian Finney-Smith played over 44 minutes. Brunson played 41 minutes. Dinwiddie played 36 and a half minutes. These guys really, really condensed rotation. The only guys off the bench, Josh Green got in a little foul trouble, but 10 minutes. Bertans played 18 minutes and Maxey played 24. That was it.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to touch on with the Jazz real quick was not something you should be doing a lot of, but Jordan Clarkson's only projected for 7% ownership. He only played 20 minutes last game, like you said. But what happens if this is a game where, for one reason or another, Utah is trailing down the stretch? I think you get Clarkson in there in place of O'Neal potentially if they need offense. And you even got like a 1 minute stretch from Clarkson late in the fourth, and then they brought Conley back in. But my point is, like, in different game situations, different game flows, you could see Clarkson get more minutes here, and we know that he's going to get up a lot of shots. So not something you should be relying on heavily, but on 3-game slates, it can be pretty difficult to differentiate and still be getting the high upside guys. Clarkson, if things break his way minutes wise, he can get those minutes. And then conversely, $3,800 for Royce O'Neal. If he does play 30 plus minutes, he's not a great fantasy producer, but that is a pretty cheap price tag.
Man, it's tough to think this Dallas team without Luka can hold a considerable lead coming into the fourth.
No, I agree completely. But at the same time, 7% ownership on $5,100 Jordan Clarkson. I mean, that's somebody that if he needs to, he can go out there and play 26 minutes and score 30 something DraftKings points.
Yeah, sure. And as we've talked about with players like Clarkson before, if they get hot, they're going to get some additional run anyway, probably late in the game. All right, let's talk about Dallas. There's nothing exciting from like Finney-Smith and Bullock, but I do want to start with those guys and then get into Brunson and Dinwiddie just to get your opinion on whether or not the fact that they're likely going to play another 44 or like just let's say 40 plus minutes at these price points is worth taking the low per minute output just for, to get the minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is. Like, the downside is that you're getting decent ownership coming to guys that aren't good point per minute players. But if you're going to get 40 plus from Finney-Smith at 5,200 and 40 plus from Bullock at 4,800, there's just not many alternatives in those price ranges. They're going to give you that many minutes, and they're still cheap enough where even if you assume they're low point per minute production, it still just averages out to like mid-20s fantasy points at pretty cheap price tags. And I don't really think there's any reason to think that those minutes are going anywhere. Like, what are the what are the other options for Dallas? Like those guys need to be out there defensively for them to have any chance here. Bullock can knock down threes as well, so can Finney Smith. Bullock this year, 566 minutes without Luka or Porzingis on the floor, 0.67 DraftKings points per minute. Finney Smith at 0.81, so not even horrible production there, but it's just the number of minutes make them pretty appealing options, even though they're not the best fantasy guys.
Dinwiddie and Brunson are the two, obvious spots here. Again, low scoring game, not a great matchup, but I'm not really sure how much that matters. They both had monster usage rates last time out. Both of them played considerable minutes. Brunson a little bit more, but still, I mean, when you've got a game like this and you take a guy like Luka Doncic off the floor, that void offensively is so big that when you're tasking Brunson and Dinwiddie with filling that void, their price points are still going to be too low here.
Yeah, I think that they are pretty clearly underpriced still. Again, not a good matchup, but there's just so much production to be had. Dinwiddie's played 303 minutes without Luka since joining Dallas, 30.9% usage rate, 32% assist percentage. Obviously you can expect that to come down a little bit the more minutes he's playing with Brunson. And then Brunson, similarly, 836 minutes without those guys, 28.5% usage, 34.5% assist percentage. You can expect that to come down a little bit because he's playing alongside Dinwiddie. So they do cut into each other somewhat. But if you're going to get 40 minutes from Jalen Brunson at 7,200 and 36 to 40 from Dinwiddie at 6,600, those guys are clearly two of the top mid-range options, and also two guys that I don't remember if I mentioned them before, but two more guys that kind of make it even more difficult to get to Donovan Mitchell at 8,300, even though his upside is so high.
It's true. Who do you like more over between Dinwiddie and Brunson? Is there any lean here, or do you just take the savings on Dinwiddie?
I think it's the savings on Dinwiddie, but I would pay a lot of attention to the ownership projections. Right now, we have them close enough. Like we have Dinwiddie at 42%, we have Brunson at 33%. But I would pay attention there. Like I know, and maybe it changes today, but I know in the first game, especially as you moved up in stakes, Brunson, the gap became bigger. Like I know in the highest stakes tournament that I played, Dinwiddie was like 85% owned, Brunson was 21%. So I do think it's something where in larger fields, you're probably going to get it closer. So maybe in larger fields, you actually want to go a little bit heavier on Dinwiddie. But if you're somebody that's playing in higher stakes, smaller fields, not that it makes Dinwiddie a bad play, but it makes Brunson relatively better because I think you can expect the gap to be bigger.
Okay. Last thing here before we move on to the last game. Maxi Kleber played 24 off the bench last game. Pretty standard production for what we would normally expect for somebody like him. Not exciting. He is cheap though. Is this another one of these spots where you just have to at least be considering him as Dwight Powell's backup?
Yeah, it's just, it's a $3,800 price tag. It's hard to come by guys at that price that, are going to play mid-20s in minutes. At the same time, pay attention to his ownership. He's getting 28% right now. As a comparison, Kleba is at 28%. Royce O'Neal at the same price is at 17%. I think they both suck from a fantasy standpoint. I don't really want to play either one, but they're kind of functionally the same player. I don't think there's any real reason that one of them should be, getting 2/3 the ownership of the other one. So pay attention to the ownership between those two and just generally amongst the players in that price range.
We got free tools on the site today. It's Monday. Sunday, we don't. Every other day of the week, we do. NBA ownership rankings are free tonight. MLB player rankings. Do we have an early slate? Do we have an early MLB slate?
There's one game. It's Patriots Day.
Oh, that's it, huh? Okay. NHL player rankings as well. All of that stuff is free. And if you just wanted to get in on everything else we have, whether you want to do an Awesemo plus NBA for the week, for the month, you could do an express pass for less than $5 a week, or go full out for the year for every sport, all access, Awesemo plus platinum. Doesn't matter. You want to do just baseball, just UFC, NASCAR, or do them all. We have PGA, NASCAR, UFC, like I said, baseball, basketball, USFL. Now we've got projections for that, esports. If they have contests out there, we got content for it, built by the best guys out there. And as you've seen in our Hall of Fame segments, got big winners coming in all the time. So check it out. The Boom Bust tool, the top stacks, ownership, player projections, lineup builder. For baseball, the top pitchers tool and top stacks tool are fantastic, and a lot more. You can get the Fantasy Cruncher add-on on top of that as well. So awesemo.com/join if you want to check all of that out. And our Best Bets Discord as well. You got the Best Bets Discord that you can get in there. all of our best bets from Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, from Ben Rasa, from Steve Buzzard, all put neatly into that Discord channel. And it's a great community that's being cultivated there. If you want to join, check it out in the description, or we can put that link in the chat as well. The Best Bets Discord with Alex, Ben, Steve. We're using our industry leading projections to identify the best bets in basketball, baseball, and a whole lot more. All right, let's move this one on, wrap it up with Denver and Golden State. I mean, Denver is clearly outmatched here, Adam, whether Curry's coming off the bench or not. The problem in the postseason is that you just don't, this is what I was talking about with Joel Embiid, right? You just don't win games consistently if, Nikola Jokic is the guy that has to do everything.
And also, what the hell is Mike Malone doing with these rotations?
I have no idea. I have no idea. It makes me wonder at this point if he just is trying to catch lightning in a bottle with somebody. I don't know, because
you have an awful bench. It's killed you all regular season, and you decide that you still need to play 10 guys in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, he played DeMarcus Cousins for what did he play him for? A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-minute stretch in the first half. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big DeMarcus Cousins fan, but defensively, big time liability. Bryn Forbes, Bones Highland, JaMychal Green, and Austin Rivers. So it's not. The 10 players is not what bothers me, Adam, as much as the literally having your entire bench unit out there for like a 6-minute stretch in the first half of the game.
Right, yeah, we're on the same page. Like, what really bothers me is that he just refuses. He did it in the second half. He used Barton off the bench, and not surprisingly, Barton had a good second half. But that's the thing that annoys me the most. Is just like, you can't have all 5 of these guys out there. When Jokic isn't on the floor, you need actual good players out there, like the best that you have, at least.
And they're already limited there. Gordon
and Barton. You can't be running like Bryn Forbes and Austin Rivers and Bones Highland with Cousins and Green. Like, that doesn't. You're just going to get destroyed in those minutes, and you're already the worst team out of the two. So, like, you can't just give up the however many minutes Jokic is on the bench and say, yeah, we'll make it back. So made no sense to me. The second half rotation was a bit better. You got Barton subbing in, so he at least played with the second unit. Hopefully that continues today. And if it does make Barton look even better at 5,500. Like, I think he's decent one way or the other. But if you're going to get Will Barton playing those bench minutes, he becomes a much, much more productive player because those minutes without Jokic are so valuable. Similarly, I would think you get more minutes from Jokic here. Like, he played 17 minutes in the first half. And like you were saying, Cousins is whatever, but you can't have Jokic pacing 34 minutes in a playoff game. The guy was playing 40 minutes down the stretch in the regular season. Why are we cutting his minutes back in round 1?
I don't know. It makes no sense. Is a Cousins backup stint fine? Yeah, you give him 4 and 4, 5 and 5 in the first and second half, not 7. And then in the second half, like you said, we saw some adjustments there. Cousins playing time was limited, but it's ugly. And look, you can make an argument. I'm sure someone will be like, yeah, but in the first half, when that whole bench was out there, Golden State didn't pull away with it. Yeah, I get that, but it's still not what you're looking to do. I mean, it just doesn't make a ton of sense. And really, when Golden State did pull away, it is when the Denver's bench was out there. That's when they took that lead and ballooned it to 24, even though Barton was out there a little bit as well. But anyway, Nikola Jokic today, he had 111 touches in 34 minutes, which is just crazy. Like,
that's insane. And again, like, I think he plays more minutes here. He granted, he still got to 34 and a half minutes and lost 4 minutes to garbage time, but the thing there is Cousins got ejected. So Malone was kind of forced.
I forgot about that. You're right.
Well, yeah. You could look at the rotation and say, like, oh, Malone learned in the second half and he only played Cousins, for like 3 minutes. He was forced to put his best player back in the game.
Totally forgot about that. You're right. Yeah.
So it was just, but at the same time, like, I can't expect that he's about to do the same thing. Like, I think Jokic is playing 38 minutes here, assuming the game's competitive, and it makes him look great. He's such a good passer that, like, basically what we were talking about with Embiid, where Toronto's probably going to force him to not score 40 points a night. That's been the case with Jokic all year. His teams are doing that, but he's such a good passer. You can only do it, it still limits your effectiveness. So there's not really concerns where Golden State takes Jokic out of the game because you're just kind of getting what you've gotten all season long. I think at 11K, he looks great. I would prefer getting to him over Embiid if I can. $300 price difference there. So still really like Jokic. And then the rest of this team is tough to trust. But I do like the $5,500 tag on Barton. I think one way or the other, you're getting mid-30s in minutes. But if you do see Malone replicate that second half bench rotation where Barton came in instead of Bryn Forbes, that makes Barton look even better. Monte Morris at 4,900, Aaron Gordon at 6K. They're both fine. Gordon should play a lot of minutes here. He was really bad in game one, but it's one game. We know Aaron Gordon can still get it done offensively. And at 6K, if this game's competitive, he's likely to give you 36 minutes or so. So I think any of those guys are fine. Barton would be my priority out of the Gordon, Barton, Morris group. But I think, any of them are fine to get to. After that, if you end up throwing some darts at guys like Highland or Green or Austin Rivers, who played 26 minutes, it's a 3-game slate, so whatever. But definitely not excited to go too deep into Denver's rotation here.
What do you think the closing lineup is if this game's close?
Morris, Barton, Gordon, Jokic, obviously.
Yes, but is it Green? Is it like
it could be Green, Rivers, or
Highland? Who?
Like down the stretch in the regular season, we saw Highland a lot.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you also get the it's the postseason and Green's a veteran. He's less likely to do something stupid.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So I kind of think that last spot is just dependent on a lot of in-game factors, but I would expect that it's one of Green, Rivers, or Highland.
That's what I was thinking too. It could definitely be Green. It could.
Yeah.
We saw Rivers closing out games last year. Was it last?
Yeah, I mean, he closed out the last game too. Granted, that was garbage time, but he played straight through it.
Yeah, my assumption is just where he would have come off, he just kept playing through.
Yeah, that's what I think as well.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap this one up. Hit that thumbs up too. Are we at 100 yet? Oh, 102. Good stuff. Appreciate you guys. Got 522 watching on a Monday morning. But if you haven't done so, hit that thumbs up. It only takes 1 single second to make the world a better place, and subscribe to the channel as well. Yeah, by the way, Trent didn't go through shoot around, and Scotty Barnes is in a walking boot. So that gives us a decent idea of what we're getting there. On the other side with the Golden State Warriors, Draymond Green, just super involved last game, 17 potential assists. Obviously didn't have to play a ton of minutes in that game, 29, but he was effective. If you're getting those type of games from him, and do you think Curry starts today?
I'm not sure. I don't really have a good feel for it.
But
I kind of doubt it. He only played 22 minutes, and I think they want him out there at the end of quarters. So assuming he's not just going to go play an extra 10 to 12 minutes today, I kind of think they just stick with what they did, especially because they won so easily. If they can just walk through this round with Steph Curry just coming off the bench and playing 24 minutes every game, you would think that that's something they would like to do.
Right. I think you're right. So it does make, though, especially if he's starting, granted, Draymond Green, Steph Curry is a fine playmaker, but he's not like this elite. Passing is not what he's known for. So I still think, though, Draymond Green at 6,500, is he a top option? Maybe not, but I'll take the ability to fill a stat sheet like that any day of the week, especially if this game ends up being, competitive. And then Green pulls those extra 4 minutes at the end of the game. You get into around 33 minutes or so. And at 65 mid-range price point, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, agreed. I think he's just kind of where he should be in price.
Yeah.
He's not somebody I'm going out of my way to target, but at the same time, he's only projected for 25% ownership. We know he has plenty of upside. If I land on some Draymond, then I'm sure I will because it's a 3-game slate. That's fine. So it's just, I don't know, it's somebody that I just don't have a strong take on one way or the other. I don't think he's overpriced. I don't really think he's underpriced. I think he's a good play if he happens to fit into your lineup.
Agreed. Jordan Poole with a 30-point game last time out. That was interesting, but
yeah. Yeah, another reason that I think they probably just go back to Curry on the bench. Like, somebody said in chat, as long as Poole's playing well, you don't need it. It kind of goes with what I was saying, where like if they can just walk through Denver without pushing Steph Curry, and I think Poole is good enough that they probably can.
Right. Look, yeah, you have Klay Thompson, you have Jordan Poole. Wiggins is fine, right? Like Wiggins is a fine third scoring option right now. So I think you're right. I think Curry can continue at least for another game to come off the bench if they take two at home, and then you're looking good.
Yeah, like if they lose today, I'm pretty confident Steph Curry's starting game 3.
Yeah,
but it would make sense to just kind of say like, okay, we'll just keep getting Curry a couple extra minutes off the bench, and if we don't need him this round, then cool, we get a fresh Steph Curry in round 2.
But it's kind of nice though when you have Michael Malone emptying his bench in the first half while Steph Curry's out there for Golden State.
Right.
Coming off the bench. Not the entire time, obviously, but yeah, I don't know. Either way, is there anybody else for Golden State that stands out as a great option? I think like just in terms of aggregate ownership, this is probably the lowest owned team on the slate. Am I wrong? If you had to guess?
I think you're right, because I mean it's just a really difficult team to get to. Like Draymond's getting the most ownership on this team at 25%. The issue is, like Klay Thompson at 7,400. He's fine. Like he's going to get plenty of usage. He can certainly get hot and knock down a lot of shots. But when you take a step back and you don't, you think about what your alternatives are to Klay Thompson. Thompson looks fine, but like, does he really look better than Brunson or Dinwiddie or Mitchell for a little bit more, or any of these other guards that we talked about? So I think in tournaments he's okay, but it's really difficult to prioritize him. Same goes for Jordan Poole. He's up to $7,900. Can he go have a big game? Sure, but it's not only that you need Poole to have a good game for $7,900, is that you need him to still like outperform all of these guys that are cheaper and can go do the exact same thing as him. So it's difficult to prioritize either of them. Wiggins is kind of like, I think, a worse version of Green, but similar in that, he's just at that basically correct price point. If Andrew Wiggins slightly outscores $6,200, I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm not like building lineups around it. Kevon Looney was a really popular value play last game, but he's just not going to get enough minutes for you to really get that ceiling. Like he was good point per minute. I think he had like 14 or 15 DraftKings points, but he played 13 and a half minutes. So, and there's nothing really to think that changes, because you have Draymond Green, who, like in any competitive game, you're getting Green out there. Iguodala is going to cut into his minutes. Otto Porter's still going to play. So it's really difficult to prioritize getting to Looney. I do think Porter at 4,500 is kind of interesting, like especially if you have a lineup where the salary doesn't matter too much. And so we know that like a lot of ownership is going to Royce O'Neal, or like 18% is going to Royce O'Neal at 3,800, 28% right now going to Kleba at 3,800. If you can find the salary to get to a 6% owned Otto Porter for $700 more, I do think that's kind of interesting, just because he's a better point per minute guy. He played 25 minutes last game. I think that, he beats those two often enough that it's interesting in tournaments if you can find the salary.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with it at all. I mean, you're not going to get him closing a game, but 25 minutes is still probably, if you can get 25 minutes off the bench, yeah, I'd be all right with that, especially in a game that, once again, I mean, you got, I don't actually, now that I think about it, what do you think the upside is for minutes on Porter? I mean, 25 seems like that's probably outside of foul trouble where he's going to be, right?
Yeah, I would say like 24 to 26.
Yeah.
He was like in their closing lineup basically. But then at the same time, like he subbed out for Poole. So yeah, I mean, I think 24 to 26, if the game's competitive, is probably where you end up.
Yeah, I just figured Curry would be in that closing lineup.
Well, yeah. So what I was looking at was they had Curry, Wiggins, Thompson, Green, and Porter out there, but then they did sub Poole in with they subbed them in for like 26 seconds and then called off the dogs. But yeah, so I think that's a reasonable expectation. Like you could also conceivably just not get those final 3 minutes and you're looking at like 22. So I guess like 22 to 26 probably for Porter.
All right. Hey, that'll do it for us. Good stuff, man. As always, follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS, me at Lafayette_D. Shout out to Jordan Klein for producing this one. We got a lot going on. MLB strategy show, as a matter of fact, coming up right after this on this very channel. Who do we got on that? Greg and Eric? Yeah, okay. Greg and Eric for the strategy show. Got MLB Live Before Lock with Eric and Neil Orfield. Then at 5:30, MLB Deeper Dive, 6:30, Live Before Lock with Josh and myself. We're going to take you all the way up to 8 today. Going to have a fun night. So hang out with us. We'll catch you back here soon. Appreciate you guys as always. Peace.